You have your product description and your bullet points done. You have amazing photos. Your offer is all set up. But there's one more thing that you need to make your product jump to the top of that Amazon search. Your SEO, or search engine optimization, aka keywords. And that's what we're going to cover in today's video. The search terms or keywords or SEO, however you want to talk about it, are super important for how your product shows up in the search results. This is not just for Amazon, but for Etsy or your product pages for your website on Google. Everyone uses search engine optimization, and you need to think about keywords for your products. So currently the search terms are located on the product description page. This is something that you will fill in when you first start listing your product. Like I said, your first page that you have to fill in may differ if it's a new product versus a product that you're copying, which we'll talk about copying a listing a little later, but your first page of how you start to fill in about your product may be slightly different. The hardest part for me, I find, is not repeating words, because on Amazon, you do not need to repeat words. I know for a while there on Etsy, we needed to put, if we were selling stickers, I needed to put sticker in the title, in the description box. I needed to put it in my tags 2 or 3 times. You don't need to do that on Amazon. Once you add the word sticker, you're done, which is very hard for me to find another way to describe my product. So one of the things that I do to help my listing rank is what kind of sticker it is. Is it boho? Is it minimal? Is it functional? Is it decorative? Is it for journals? Is it for planners? So think about adjacent products when you're working on your search engine optimization or your keywords. These are a required field from Amazon, and you only have so many characters that you can use to fill in the one box that they have. They used to do multiple boxes. They've consolidated it down to one big box that you can put all of your keywords in, and you don't lose any characters based on not being able to fill it in. These keywords that you're going to fill in are your organic search terms. So if someone were searching for a sticker and say they're searching for a gym fitness planner sticker, if all of that is in my search terms, my item will show up. Now, there's other things that go into how your item ranks, but your search terms are definitely one of the main things for getting your listing seen. So some of these terms may be terms that you would use to search for your product, but you wouldn't necessarily include in your title. A good example may be a relaxing bath candle. I may search for that. I may search for that on Amazon, and I may use those terms, but you don't want to put relaxing in your title. You may want to put bath time candle, but relaxing doesn't fit. So you can drop relaxing down into your search terms, and that makes more sense for your listing. You also want to think about adjacent terms that you can include for your listing. So I make stickers, but my stickers are used in planners and journals and wall calendars and habit charts or whatever. So keep that in mind when you're doing your search terms. You can list the adjacent terms. So I typically put bullet journal, planner, dot grid, mom, teenager, student. Depending on what the sticker is, I may use adjacent terms that would fit my sticker that wouldn't work in the description or the title. Keep in mind, you also have the style and occasion keywords that you can fill in because you're a handmade seller. So that may be a good way to include different styles like boho or minimal or traditional or transitional. Those are styles that I can think of off the top of my head. But that may be a good option too to get more keywords in your listing. You don't need to use articles or prepositions like the, and, or. You don't need to use any of those words, and you only need to put the word in once. So if I'm using sticker as my first word, I don't need to repeat it again. And I don't need to use weekly planner, daily planner. I can just put weekly, daily planner, and it will still use, it like intermixes those words that are in the box. You don't need to use commas. You can just use a space between the words, so it just looks like a bunch of words kind of mashed together, but you want to maximize the space that you have in that one box. So there are some prohibited words that you do not want to include. You don't want to include brand names, yours or anyone else's. So when I use bullet journal, I don't use bullet journal together. I'll use journal dot grid bullet and split it up so that it doesn't see it as one word. And that way I don't get suppressed. I haven't ever gotten suppressed from a search term, but you definitely can get suppressed from titles or descriptions or bullet points. So something to keep in mind, that if you don't want to target another brand that way, and there's other ways that you can target other brands to show up beside or instead of. We'll get into that when we talk about advertising some more, but definitely don't want to use prohibited words in any of your listing, because anywhere it can get you suppressed and you won't show up at all. You also don't want to use your SKU, like your personal SKU that you have, or your ASIN or your FN SKU, or anything that's like an identifier on Amazon. There's no reason to use that. If someone were to search for that ASIN, I know I've searched that way before. If I've found something I liked and I found the ASIN for it, you can search on just that ASIN number inside of Amazon and it will show up. So you don't need to include that in your search terms. You also don't want to use words like amazing or beautiful or anything that is what we talked about, like short term. You don't want to use any of that stuff. And you also don't want to use anything offensive. Amazon is very particular about the types of words when it gets too offensive. We talked about how this is a little bit different than Etsy, in that Etsy gives you a box to fill in, and you fill in 13 tags that are 20 characters a piece, and you have to use all the characters, and if you go over 20, it won't let you add it, and you could be grossly under 20 and end up losing space. So one of the things that Amazon is different is you have this one big box and you can just type words in. And they don't have to be in a specific order or grouped specifically together. And you won't lose any space based on the fact that you left off 3 letters on each tag and you ended up losing room overall on the number of characters that you can have in your search terms. Amazon does have a search term report. They don't like to share a lot of their algorithm information, but if you are brand registered, you can get a search term report, and I'll kind of drop a list of some of the ones that I've shown up for and kind of how this report looks. Basically, you go in and you can do it per ASIN, you can do it for your brand. I think you can do it for categories and stuff too, and you can also search to see what is being searched the most right now. So if you're a regular seller and you want to try to get into a totally different category, you can say, okay, well, everybody's searching for iPhone 15 cases. I'm going to go get an iPhone 15 case and list it. You can see a lot of information, especially if you're brand registered. You don't have to be to sell on Amazon, but it is definitely highly recommended because you get a lot more information that can help drive your business. And like I said, you really can't see any search terms or how they're doing if you're not brand registered or use a third-party software. I know I use Helium, but even Helium doesn't give you the actual results. They don't know. They can only run their own information, and based on how the algorithm worked 10 years ago, they can use that to kind of say, okay, well, this is probably how it's working now. So it's not a fail-safe. The best information that you're going to get is if you're brand registered and you get the information directly from Amazon. There's a lot of other information you can see in brand analytics other than your search terms. You can also see more about your customers, how your brand is doing, and all that kind of stuff. And that's something we'll get into in the brand registry series because there is a lot in that category that we can talk about. So if you're using advertising, you can start with the terms that you have in your keyword box, but you can also target specific terms in your advertising, or you can target a specific brand. Like say I want to target Erin Condren and I want to show up beside of them when you search. I want to be that sponsored product right there beside of their planners or their stickers. So I can target them when I run ads. And I may have to pay a higher amount to target them or target another brand or another particular category, but I can target that when I do my advertising. And like I said, that's a whole nother ballgame and totally different, but you can use these terms kind of as a starting point. And that's another reason I used Helium 10, which is a third-party software. They can kind of help with ads and kind of help manage it, and you don't have to pull it out. I know with Amazon, if you want to do a lot of research on how your ads are doing and how the terms are ranking and all that kind of stuff. To really get into the nitty gritty, you need to pull it out as a CSV and do a lot of Excel work. With Helium 10, you don't have to do all that work. It kind of does it in the background of the software. It is kind of expensive and definitely wasn't something I started paying for until later, and actually had it on pause for a little while to kind of gain more profit as opposed to spending it on stuff like that. So something to keep in mind, that you can use third-party software to kind of look at things and kind of get a gauge on how things are doing. But there's a lot of information that I have found kind of buried in Amazon that you can get to that maybe you wouldn't need that third-party software. And that's something I'm learning as I go. So definitely something to keep in mind. So once you have your listing all ready to go, you can hit save and finish, and you are done with your first listing on Amazon. I know when I got done with my first listing, I was super excited and ready to see kind of how it went. For the first few days, it was definitely very slow, and it's because it's a brand new listing. If you're just starting out, it takes a while for your listing to gain traction in the search results and gain traction with customers and kind of show up. And it also matters that you don't have any reviews at all. So something to keep in mind is it may take a while for your listing to kind of get there and start selling. One thing that I did do was I left it up for a little while, and when it wasn't seeing a lot of sales, I was seeing a few, but not a lot, I decided to put my products into Prime, and that's something we're going to get into like the next series or so. So we'll talk all about Prime, but that is the one way that I saw to get my products in the hands of customers a lot faster. And it's something they wanted. Definitely something to think about when you first list your product. Get your product listed, let it get up in the system, give it a few days. If you're not seeing any sales, it may not be the product. It may just be that it's not showing up. And that's because it's a brand new listing. If you have some on hand that you can send in for Prime, send it in and see how it does. You may need to adjust your price a little bit for the fees and things that it takes out, and that's something you can do. But one thing that it may take up to 24 hours for your listing to show up on Amazon. I know sometimes it can show up within like 5 or 10 minutes. It just depends on the servers and where they're at in their backup stage and like refresh state. It could take it a minute to show up. And if a lot of people are adding a lot of new listings, it could take a while for it to kind of show up there. 15 minutes is like the minimum, and 24 hours is like the complete maximum. As soon as you list your product, don't go searching for it right away. You may see a partial listing. I know I've listed some custom personalized things for people before for them to purchase, and you'll see like the description, but you won't see the photo, and it may take a little while for the photo to show up. So just keep that in mind, that don't go search for it right away. Give it some time, give it a couple of hours, and then go search for it and see how it looks. You can always search for your own products. However, one thing to keep in mind, if you have your business account and you have a separate account for personal, don't buy them from your personal account and then leave a review. If Amazon finds out, they will cut both accounts off. And don't have your friends or family go in and buy and leave reviews, prompted reviews, because if they find out that you're related, they can also like cut the accounts off. So just something to keep in mind. Amazon's really peculiar about how reviews are left and that kind of thing, which I appreciate as a buyer, that they don't let people kind of curate their reviews. One thing I did want to cover in this video, now that you've got your first listing up, is now you can copy that listing. So now that you've got that listing the way you want it and it's showing up the way you want it to, you can go into your Manage All Inventory page and your product will appear there, and you have an option to the far right, and I'll try to put it up here. To the far right, there will be a little bar that shows up, and you can click the little caret and you can copy the listing. And now that you've gotten a lot of the information set up, like your production time and your price, and you've selected the right tax category and all that, now you can copy the listing and you can start from there as opposed to starting from scratch every time. It's definitely helpful, especially if you're listing a similar product. If you're listing another type of candle, maybe some of those keywords are the same between multiple listings, so you don't have to start over with your keywords. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can copy the listing. It definitely makes it go a lot faster. If you're coming over from Etsy, there is a way to pull your product's CSV off of Etsy and upload it into Amazon. Now, I didn't do this because I didn't want every single product on Etsy to come up in Amazon, because some of the products I didn't want to transfer and I knew they wouldn't sell well. There is some specific steps to upload from Etsy into Amazon, and if you search within the seller search inside Seller Central, it will give you a very detailed list of how to upload that file. It will tell you what to download from Etsy how to fix it so that you can upload it into Amazon, because there are slightly different categories and stuff. Like I said, I didn't do this for mine because I didn't want to pull everything over. The other thing is, because of how we have to list the variations and things inside of Etsy, knew that I could do it different in Amazon, so I didn't want to have to go in and redo all of that once I got it uploaded. I also wanted to understand the platform better. I didn't want to upload 100 products right at once and all of a sudden start getting all these orders and have no idea what I was doing. So I opted to list like a couple of items that I thought would sell well. They were like I think the first one I started with was some weather dots. They were little gray dots that had different weather things on them. And those are the first thing that I sold. And those started going like gangbusters. And it was because I had them listed for the price was too low, but I did that kind of on purpose. I was trying to see what my price could be on Amazon because it's different than Etsy. So I started off low, and as they started selling, I actually increased the price, and I kept increasing the price until the sales slowed down enough to where I could keep up and I was turning a profit. So that's something else you can kind of work with. When you start to list a product, you can list it at your Etsy price and kind of see how it does. If it starts selling really well, you can always bump the price up. There's nothing saying you have to leave it at the price that it is. Definitely kind of do your research and figure out what other items are listed at, and keep in mind what you have to do to make your product, because obviously you may be a little higher on the time side than some of the other products. So that's something to kind of consider. I also know that pulling products from Etsy to another platform can be extremely complicated. I did that with my Shopify site, and I wish I hadn't. My Shopify website is such a mess that I kind of want to shut it down and start over. I can't. But I kind of wish I could go in and just delete everything and start over, but I would lose everything. So going through there and trying to go one by one to update things or fix things is time consuming. And it's really kind of hard to do. That's another reason I didn't want to just pull everything over, because I didn't want to totally screw up the platform and list a bunch of stuff in a way that I didn't like. So like I said, the other thing that I found to be kind of hard and complicated was how the variations work. And because you can only have two like categories of variations, and then you need to use a personalization, I didn't want to pull things over from Etsy into Amazon with that set up and then not be able to fix it. I ended up just kind of going through my Etsy listings and kind of going through it and saying, okay, yeah, that one would be a good one to pull over. That one would be good. There's definitely some things that I could pull from Etsy over to Amazon still. But to be honest, I'm at 120 products and a lot of them are in Prime, and it's hard for me to keep up now. It's definitely something to think about, is once you start selling and once you get a lot of products in there, can you keep up with everything? Are you going to need to hire someone to help you? I know my mom comes and helps me package stickers sometimes. My nephew, who is 5, actually really enjoys it, so he helps sometimes, but it's definitely something to keep in mind when you start selling on Amazon, like how you're going to structure your workflow, and that's something else we can talk about in the course. And I definitely think that Amazon, if I wasn't on Amazon, I still wouldn't be selling. It's definitely a plus, and it's definitely something I enjoy. And I hope you guys enjoyed this series about getting your first listing on Amazon and kind of going through some of the listing things. If you have questions, please let me know down in the comments below. If you would like to get more help or critiques on your listings or your photos or your SEO or anything like that, and learn more about Amazon, I have a course coming in March. I know I've talked about it in every video, but I have a course coming in March. I'm super excited, and I would love to have you guys join. So if you would like to get on the wait list and get some extra bonuses, like a one-on-one session for 30 minutes, you can drop down into the description box. It is primeforsuccess.co/waitlist. And I would love to have you guys join over in the course. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.